I guess you'll be able to watch it below this live feed too. So, are you rolling? All right. Hey, we're live right now. We're watching a beautiful little promo. Okay. Right? You should be seeing you. Should be seeing me. The first guy. Then you're gonna see Gregory Wendt. Gregory Wendt.
Video watching.
The guy that's actually advising a lot of really important people on how to keep things real, how to keep things fresh, how to make this world a better place through investment of our money. That's Gregory Wendt. We'll come back. We'll talk about JoyScore. Yeah.
So how you doing? Are we at almost
seconds left. So you can go to those other producers. We're having. So you're gonna open on this camera right here. 13, a few seconds. Boo! Hey, we're live.
We're live. All right.
Whoa,
welcome to JoyScore.
Welcome to another episode of JoyScore. What is this, like 10? Is this like 10? 10 shows I think we got under our belt here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, JoyScore is, God, this is always a re-exploration of what JoyScore is, so we can kind of get you guys involved in this whole process of seeing the world through a fresh pair of eyes and elevating your levels of joy in whatever aspect of life you happen to find yourself in. So that's what this is about. And our guests, they bring their life experience and their work experience, and then they show us these little nuggets and how they learn from their work and how they bring that into their life and elevate their levels of being, elevate their levels of consciousness, elevate their spirits, and inspire those around them. And we've got a money person, Gregory Wendt, and we have a music person, Matt Kalin, saxophonist. I mean, these guys saxophonists are so passionate and so awesome what they do. But Suzanne, maybe you could tell us a little bit about these extraordinary guys. This is my lovely co-host over here, Suzanne Toro. You're looking beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you, Thomas. You're looking pretty snazzy yourself.
I'm trying tonight. A little red leather.
Yeah.
Red leather.
That's nice. Good follow-up for our animal activism.
Passionate colors.
Passion, definitely. Root colors. So, speaking of root, so red, root chakra, Greg's going to talk to us about currency, which in this day and age, if we don't have currency, we go into fight or flight. So it'll be really good to get his wisdom to have a really healthy relationship.
That's so true, right?
Yeah.
Like if the money's not right or the rent's not getting paid, then we kind of get that stress hormone going. What is that stress hormone? Is that cortisol?
Yep.
Cortisol goes up when we get stressed. We go into fight or flight.
Yeah. So money is the saber-toothed tiger of this day and age. And, it's good to acknowledge and then have a healthy relationship. So food, water, shelter, and money. Greg is an amazing guy. He's an environmentalist. He's a brilliant mind. He looks at a lot of amazing ways to figure out how to make communities and global conversations around economy more sustainable and regenerative.
I love the fact that he's an economist. Because those economists are kind of magical guys because they have this wonderful way of predicting the future, by taking in all the information and then giving us an accurate output of what may happen.
Absolutely.
But a good economist is worth his weight in gold, and having that financial planner aspect or helping people build their wealth with an economic background, that makes this guy extremely powerful, yeah?
Absolutely, and he can speak both languages. So people coming from more of an old paradigm, he's really personable and able to help bridge them into a new possibility, a new way to think. He's really cosmic in the sense that he speaks from the universal cosmic stance and brings it back here to Earth.
And have a financial planner talk to you about the cosmos as he sits there and plans your financial wealth for the future. Sounds mystical.
He is mystical.
He's a mystical guy.
He spent a lot of time in India. He's a yogi. He's been a longtime friend of mine. We do the way of tea together. So he brings in a lot of...
Yeah, he likes those ancient teas. He likes old tea.
Yeah, and if you have tea with him, you might get a guru in your mouth, a little ash blessing.
A guru in your mouth, a little ash blessing. Yeah. Wow.
We can ask him about that, but it's always fun.
Maybe you can explain that.
He's
because you in your ceremonies in helping the people that you help, you bring tea into it quite a bit.
Yes, all my.
Tell us a little bit about the tea ceremony.
So way of tea is a Zen practice used in the Tao and different traditions.
It's another way to elevate your joy score too, especially when you're having a
Absolutely.
tea appreciation, or it could be a coffee appreciation, right?
Yep, absolutely. And it just brings you into present moment. And the tea leaf is a amazing adaptable element.
Does the tea bring you into present moment, or is it a ceremony and then the tea bring you into present?
It's a couple things. It's set and setting. So those serving tea in a tea ceremony are responsible for really being grounded, present, and in the space, and cognizant, having a clear mind of what they're delivering. When they're, in the Tao, it's not just to be present. It's really, how are you touching the teapot? How are you with everyone in the room? Are you cognizant of their feelings, their emotions?
So what are some of the specifics of, like, when you do a tea ceremony? Like, what are you very cognizant of when you do that?
Well, as Wuda would say,
who's Wuda?
Wuda is a Zen monk out of Taiwan. He has the global
Wuda the Buddha.
Wuda the Buddha, definitely. And Greg knows him. Greg and I knew each other before Wuda, but we both are close with Wuda, and Greg has helped him out a lot. They have the global tea hut in Taiwan, but Wuda will encourage everyone to put chalk around their tea space, whether it's just for themselves, for one person, or a group of people, that you really leave everything behind and come into the present moment before you serve that tea.
Tea ceremony is about preparation and how to maybe move into your day with a clear head, clear space, right?
Well, in the medicine, so the tea leaf, the tea tree will actually wither and die if it does not have human touch. So the leaf, when you're receiving living tea, will go where it needs to go: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So it's a beautiful catalyst in a ceremony, but also for me in my sessions to prepare the clients to receive sound from me, that they can really come into present with nature.
How about this Matt Kalin guy?
Matt Kalin,
the passionate saxophonist.
He's a
master. He saw him at the 4th of July just jamming out, talk about elevating people's joy scores.
Yes, well, a saxophone will elevate everyone's joy score. He's an amazing teacher. He teaches kids in elementary all the way up to high school. He's an amazing musician, and currently in Manuel the band.
Manuel the band.
Yeah.
They just released a new single.
Yes, and we're going to hear it tonight.
That little promo, the lead in, was actually the beginning of the new single.
Yep.
And then later on we're gonna watch the whole video of it before he comes in.
Yes.
Yeah, we're so excited about that, right?
Yeah.
New single, not released anywhere.
Yeah, and what I love about Matt is he's an adventurer. He's really he has avalanche gear. He takes skiing. He likes to off-road, really be in nature and commune with nature.
He's an LBC wild man.
He is an LBC wild man.
I love it.
Yeah,
this guy's got some spirit, man. He's awesome. So how you bringing joy into your life? These guys elevate people's joy scores, right?
Absolutely.
You elevate people's joy scores.
I try
with your tea ceremonies and stuff. Yeah. What are you doing for yourself to elevate your joy scores these days?
Really, being in the present moment with myself, not only when I'm in my practice with my clients, but outside of that, really trying to be more cognizant when I'm out in nature, to really sip up the nature. I've been doing the stairs and walking along the ocean.
So a little exercise raises your joy score.
That raises, but just noticing like nature. I love like when the trees respond to me. That makes me really happy. Like the wave, they respond to the environment around me.
Do you get this? Like every time you see the ocean, do you like just feel better? Do you like take a deep breath? Like every time I see the ocean, the vastness of the ocean, I just stop naturally and take a deep breath and marvel at the reflection and the vastness of it. It's actually, I guess in a lot of cultures, the ocean is consciousness.
Yeah, and it's the metaphor, right, for samsara, the waves of life that we continue to cycle through, and the tides represent, those different phases of our life, or phases of our day, or phases of a moment.
The ocean's got everything.
Absolutely.
It's where we came from, for gosh sakes.
Absolutely. Water, people don't think of their star water, so we have fire and water together.
It's hard to believe that we crawled out of that ocean and wound up on the beach just waiting to evolve. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. So what do you do to lift up your joy, Thomas?
Well, this show is one way. I love doing this. I love these guests. I love even contemplating. That's the other thing. Just contemplating where the joy is in life can elevate your joy score. Yeah. Like every time I come in here, I'm like trying to wrap my mind around the ambiguity of this thing that we sort of take for granted. And we don't really look at it as a basis or starting ground. We typically, like me, I look at it like if I'm happy or if I'm feeling the vibe or I'm feeling life moving through my body, I realize when I get there, I'm like, man, why don't I just start here? How can I maintain this? Because when I maintain this, my IQ goes up like 40. It's like 40 points, you know?
Yeah.
But if I'm like in my head or I'm worried about something, I'm like an idiot.
Well, aren't we all, Thomas?
I don't know, but I'm an extra idiot when I got my head up my butt. I can tell you that right now. But anything that gets me back into the space, back into my body, back into, you know, a lot of our guests are showing us the way, like simply giving ourselves a little hug.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we all just give ourselves a little hug? Yeah. That's one thing. Appreciate this body. A lot of times people can't even give themselves a hug. You know, if you can't give yourself a hug, how are you supposed to give somebody else a good hug, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way. You know, when I'm in the clinics, that's one of the first exercises we do with the breath. I don't tell them that they're hugging themselves.
And ironically enough, the last person to bring that concept up was the Punisher.
Yeah. He's
the Punisher.
So a wise guy.
The Punisher brought that up. He's like, wow, what I do before I get into the boxing ring is I get Malcolm the Punisher, Malcolm the Punisher. What's his last name again? Malcolm the Punisher. McCallum. McAllister. Malcolm the Punisher McAllister. This tough guy. Like, says when I wake up, I give myself a hug. I look out the window and I get gratitude. I fill up myself with gratitude before I go to the ring and kick the shit out of somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy. I mean, but that's something that I do. I try to elevate that, or I go to the gym and I get my body moving and I try to feel my heartbeat and I try to get my heartbeat to my maximum heart rate and feel those hormones wake up in me and get my body moving, get it feeling good, do a little yoga, stretch it out.
You're really good about that, taking the time to really bring yourself into the present moment. I admire that about you.
Well, like I'm not functional. I can't serve my clients. I can't write a script. I can't even begin to do this if I'm not here, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's
entertain you. Let's actually give a shout out to JoyScore. If you're watching on any of the other pages, go to JoyScore Inc. and our page. Sharing is caring. So share this video. Share that video. Go to @JoyScore or @Suzanne Toro Live and go to JoyScore and follow us and like us, because it's important. We don't get enough likes. We don't stay on the air, and this is an awesome show. And then also, you know, if you want to get a little preview of the JoyScore book, you can check out the first edition, which was Joy in Health and Happiness. You can get it on Amazon. Joy in Health and Happiness, written by our executive producer, Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob wrote this fabulous book that helps get us right back into where we need to be, right? All the things that we're talking about. Absolutely. That's great. So, I mean, we should get this Gregory guy in here. I think so. Just to start to share that wisdom. The money man. Get the money man in. The enlightened money man. We should get him in here as soon as we can. I think so. Let's bring Greg in. We're going to play the video. Our wonderful Thomas is going to play that for us, right? Yeah. Well, that's the first one, the one that says 1. Yeah, we're gonna watch, and so this music that you hear is actually that single from the saxophone player. And then we're gonna get Gregory in here. When you come back to us, we're gonna have Greg sitting here. Sharing his wisdom. Everyone over there. Okay, so let us know when that's rolling. You can come in, have a seat, get yourself all settled. Get those headphones on, get that mic in your whenever you like. That's the one right there. Get a little bit closer, you can pull it down a little bit. Pull it down. There you go. Keep it. You get a little closer to it too. Okay, good. Yeah. Hi. Like, I'm getting a test on you right now. Give me a test. Okay, good. I got you. I can hear myself. Is that too loud? If it's too loud, you can just move it. Sometimes I get too loud. You turn it down. It kind of helps.
Well, I'm the type of love you write in pencil.
Do you have a proverb for the day?
Many times when you're alone, you'll go ahead and erase my trace.
He's the money man.
The money enlightenment solution.
Yeah, he's like, what is that song? Are we on?
Are we on? Hey, welcome back to JoyScore Live. We got Gregory Wendt in the house. Gregory Wendt, there he is. You got a shot on this guy? Yep. Are we all set up? There you are. You're on. You're on JoyScore Live.
Thank you.
You actually sounds good. Should his mic be a little bit closer? We're live.
I got him.
You're good.
Go ahead, talk into it.
Talking into it.
Yeah, his levels. His levels are really good. So
You
listen,
look great.
On the level, man.
how'd
You look
you
great.
like your intro? And I was yapping about you. Were we accurate about anything that we were talking about? Anything we
Pretty
could?
much. I didn't get all of it, but when it comes to the cosmic and to the conventional, I kind of live in all those realms.
Absolutely.
Well, you got some serious titles like senior wealth advisor, like West Coast effort of stakeholders capital. I mean, these are fancy. That's a fancy resume you got there, my friend.
It just looks fancy.
So you came from somewhere and you wound up here,
Yeah.
enlightening people and helping people with their finances.
Exactly.
What was the basis? What was the motivation of that?
How'd
How'd you get into all that?
It's a long story, but we have some time, right?
We do have some time. Don't worry.
It's actually a really beautiful story.
And we'll cut
Yeah,
you
there's
off.
so many different ways of saying it.
Yeah,
That's one
it's
thing
really
that's so fun. When you
magical.
look at all the layers, there's always different ways of approaching the same situation. So I went to UCLA, and I studied a number of different disciplines, and I ended up with a degree of economics and business administration.
Beautiful.
Yet my passions were computer science, international relations, Japanese, esoteric culture. I took biochemistry as
How
my
the hell
first
did you
ma-
know to study that stuff?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I had the notion when I was living in a meditation ashram for my summer break between my junior and senior year of high school.
Wow. So you had some serious reflection, introspection going on rather early on, yeah?
Yeah, when my parents split up when I was 14, I started going, well, what am I going to do with this crisis in my life? I can either melt down or grow from it, and I intended to grow from it. And that was maybe my first step on a spiritual path consciously in this life.
Wow. That's so. I mean, that's interesting. That's a very interesting step. So in that challenge, are you just like the only one? Were you like the only son?
I was the only son. And
Who'd you wind up with, mom or dad?
Dad moved out.
Dad moved out.
Mom was, and we all got along, though, enough for me to be able to maintain good relationships with everybody.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that.
That's a far cry from what I went through, for God's sake.
I know. Yeah, I'm very blessed for the fact that I maintain a healthy relationship with my parents and my sisters enough to be coherent.
So they were able to actually encourage you possibly on this weird little journey you decided to take. Because were they on the journey as well, or was it just something you just broke the mold on and went outside the box?
More that. My mom was on her own exploration during her midlife crisis, and she started exploring yoga and these things. And she brought home a book from a guru she met, and I'm like, look at this. This is cool. And I started meditating from the book I got at the library from the same spiritual teacher. And I'm like, I was in high school at the time.
Did you know you were meditating, or is that just a word you're using now?
No, I actually was reading books on mindfulness and meditation when I was 15.
Gosh.
And then somewhere along the lines, going back to why I went to UCLA, I was at the meditation center with a guy trying to figure out what am I going to do for college. And I wanted to go to a college where I could live in one of the two meditation centers in California at the time. One was in Oakland and one was in Santa Monica. And, well, I'll go to UCLA or I'll go to UC Berkeley. So I applied to UC Berkeley in biochemistry because I was inspired with the notion that you can look at the juice of a spinach plant and discover what's in it by shooting x-rays into it and looking at how it reflects on the plate. And I'm like, I want to be a biochemist. And somehow
the
I got
rasa
the idea.
of spinach.
Right.
The rasa of spinach.
And
the
then
juice of spinach.
Because I'm a systems thinker, I started thinking, the world has a problem with immunology, and I wanted to create a business in immunology.
What is that?
Well, immunology is the study and science of immune systems, and how we then develop better ways of supporting healthy immune systems in our
Nice.
bodies. And then, when we get to where what I'm doing now, I kind of going, well, maybe I kind of have a business that's related to that, and I'll tell you about what I mean by that later.
This guy's off the Richter scale.
So then I
I
moved
want to go back to something.
anything, yeah.
I want to go.
I'll talk about
I
anything.
want to slip back to, because we have a listening audience, and we're all dealing with our little dramas or our big dramas, or however we're perceiving it. Even if it's a little drama, we probably feel it's a big drama.
Yeah,
But especially for separate, kids that come from broken homes,
yeah.
and you find your way into meditation. So if you're how are you as a 14-year-old, and let's say finding your way out of that level of stress? Like what actually happened? Where were you? Remember yourself sitting in your bedroom, sitting there with your head in the hands and going, "What the heck? How do I do this?"
I actually do remember what happened during that period.
Tell us a little
Shortly
bit.
before my parents split up, and my father came to inform me that he was moving out for a short period. Like, what? Before that, some of my cousins had gone through a breakup with their parents, and I saw what their energy field looked like. And they were broken. They were not broken, but they were just broken down. They were really affected. And then when I was unexpectedly experiencing what my parents were going through in the split up, I'm like, do I want to be like that and let it break me? Or do I want to break through? And there was something in me that instinctively knew I am going to grow from this and nothing is going to get in my way.
Wow.
And that was just my instinct. And that was purely just innate. I had no...
That was from an outside family
Well, he
situation.
started
No, it's
reading
from
like
my-
Carl Sagan at 5.
No, I actually no. My dad. No, I started reading other books. I have a whole collection.
Yeah, but
you saw
he's-
my pictures that I sent
Yeah.
you. I mean, of all the books, I was into science, and I was into stars, and I was into science fiction, and Star Trek, and all this. And my dad and I used to look at the stars and talk about cosmology, and then he took me to see Carl Sagan, and the notion that we are all star stuff landed. And I'm like, holy Toledo, because I understand chemistry and my body enough to know that the atoms in my body were made in a star, and I understood that at 12.
We're all star children, people.
Yeah, right.
Just so you know,
totally.
for real. So we are the aliens. We're looking for aliens. Guess what?
Yeah.
We're already it.
It's much more effective to incarnate in a
I
meat
just-
suit than a tin can. I mean, come on.
Kind of cute. I mean, we're falling through the earth at a universe at 500,000 miles per hour, rotating at 3,600 miles per hour. How fast are we falling around the sun?
Like, I think we're going about 70,000 miles a
Good
minute.
Lord, look at all those
right?
elements. We're
Now,
constantly
people
in
that
motion.
have stress and anxiety issues, now you've really freaked them out.
No, but I want to go. Hold on.
Just hang on.
Hold on,
Strap yourself in.
hold on a second.
Thank God for gravity.
Hold on a second. Like, so if there's a kid listening, or there's a parent that's going through a divorce.
Yeah.
to-
Well,
how-
I mean,
how-
here's it's really pretty basic. That you got to look at what it is that you can direct because only we control what we think and what we feel and how we respond to any situation, and we have our innate reactivity that like we snap into a situation, but we can adjust how we react to our own reactivity.
So if you had a kid, what would you tell him? If you're going through a divorce and you could see the kid was down, well, how would you direct him?
I would say to whoever is listening to this that is in a situation that's challenging,
It sounds like you slayed it, dude.
that is, you are a creator.
Nice.
You're in this cosmos. You're in this earth, in this body.
Remember that,
to
you guys. You
create.
guys are a creator. He's empowering you. He's reminding you that you are the power right there.
Well, yeah, I'm not empowering you. You are. I'm helping you recognize you are power as a human being who has an innate creativity that you have a choice to harness where you're going to direct your attention.
Wait a second. This is the earliest bell to ever go off.
What?
This is the earliest ever.
You win the prize.
I know I'm
that's
a ding-a-ling.
That's like just a couple of minutes
Are you
in.
just trying to say
It's a
I'm
little
ding-a-ling?
Tibetan cowbell.
Oh, okay.
This guy
moo.
is like elevating the JoyScore, guys. Anybody.
Moo.
So if you're a parent, you're waking up the kid to what? How do you direct them into that?
Well, I would talk to the parents and the child like you both have the capacity to create from this moment Because in this moment, we've learned from Viktor Frankl or all the spiritual teachers.
Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're in that moment of like extraordinarily apparent crisis and prison, he was able to direct his attention in a way that liberated his mind and know that he could find that part of him that was free.
So if he could do it in a concentration camp, you sure the hell can do it
Where you are.
where you are.
Yeah, and we have the power to do the alchemy of shifting any situation of, lead or garbage into something beautiful, and it's up to us to choose how to choose joy.
You are a financial alchemist. This guy's a financial wizard alchemist.
He is. And so
I'm just a curious soul.
Okay,
You're a
so that's
psychonaut,
the
for
earliest
sure.
bell. That's the earliest bell ever. So now what happens? So you get through that
We're done.
divorce.
I'll take off now, Matt. Come on in.
You get through that divorce in flying colors, elevated and inspired, probably inspiring your parents, making them feel like, wow, we haven't destroyed this kid. Look at him. He's picking up the ball. He's running with it.
Yeah.
And now you clearly turn that into higher states of consciousness as a young teen. And how does that help your studies? What kind of advantage is that?
Well, I remember now what I never remembered much since.
That's what we do here.
That I started, for lack of a better word, hacking how I study by recognizing that by stilling my mind and paying attention to what was going on in class and remembering what we went through in class and what I studied in homework, that I could simply know what I needed to know by listening and internalizing it. And then when I studied, here's a secret that I always found. If you have a test tomorrow, you're studying too late. If you have a test in 3 days, you study your ass off tonight and you sleep on it so it sinks in, and then you review
Nice.
for the mornings before, to just like know that you need to trust that it's already in you because you were in class the whole time. You actually heard everything you need to know.
Hey guys, my
Just
acting
access-
clients, all my acting superstars out there, that's the lesson that you get. That's the one that we found our way
Yeah.
into that too, in
Right.
our theater arts and in being in front of the camera and how to train these actors. Similar process
Right.
of receiving.
Right, because our unconscious and our mind actually records every instant in your life. So if you just know how to access your own database, you don't need
Right.
to remember anything. You just need to access, you've already got it.
I always tell my
and
kids
relax.
that all the answers are in the universe. You just need to access them. If you can,
Well, but he had to develop that muscle. So he found the meditation, and somehow So do you remember the meditation that allowed you to develop your attention to such a degree where you could remain present as such a young man?
Well, I think there wasn't a thing like a particular technique. It was more of a depth of recognition that really became an inspiration for every area of my life where I was weak.
And that hasn't changed.
No, it just keeps expanding.
I don't want to keep
Yeah.
bringing out this bell. You got your little tinker bell. Would you please ring that thing? Would you please ring
My
that?
God.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ding-a-ling and ring-a-ling over
All
here,
right.
right?
So now cut two.
Dun,
So now cut two.
Okay, so then when I was encountering the culture's tradition about how we narrate spirituality, that at that point I was like, okay, God's up there and we're down here in the shithole. Pardon me for my French, but I'm like,
It's okay.
that's a narrative that doesn't just sit well with me, because if we're all star stuff and we're all alive and conscious, well, why doesn't that just doesn't reconcile? And I never really thought about it. But then when my mom introduced me to this Eastern philosophy, it was like, we're not only all star stuff, but we're all consciousness. And that recognition that the consciousness that created the universe mysteriously is part of me, and I am made of that. But I need to then clear my perception to perceive that reality. As I intellectually understand that I'm the star stuff, I can also cognitively recognize that I am consciousness, and that conscious force is that which drives my life and then allows me to...
So that's how you actively pulled God into back to earth.
Well, or we are God. There's not even back to earth. It's just about, that's maybe in a metaphor of like, from the idea that God's up there to God is in my skin.
aham barasmi.
Yeah.
Aham barasami.
I am the
Barasmi.
universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Nashe vam vidyate quachit.
What did he
Nothing
say?
exists that's not Shiva.
Nothing exists that's not Shiva.
Yeah.
Literally, because the whole notion that consciousness and what you might call God, whatever way you frame it, whether it's intelligence or what Carl Sagan would say, regardless, it doesn't make a
You
difference.
guys got to look up Carl Sagan. I mean, he was
Cosmos.
billions and billions and billions. Of,
Yeah,
what
it
did he
never
say?
ends. It never ends, like the billions of stars. So when you recognize that awareness, that's us, then you go, we can awaken
You can relax.
to relax because there's nowhere to go. It's simply about shifting your perception. You know,
So share that, because even as a teen going through some strife and other times potentially in your life,
yeah.
there's nowhere to go, because this is the one thing where people numb out a lot because they're uncomfortable with the here.
Right.
So share a little bit
You
about
must have been like the oddball kid, though. You must have been like the kid walking down, just like
He's-
seeing
To-
everything.
Totally, but
He's
in
the
some
special
ways,
kid.
But then you learned how to act and fit in.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm a shapeshifter, you might say. I mean, in other words, I was like involved with student, like activities, and I was part of a social service club, and I played water polo, and I was in the swim team, and AP calculus, and I'd go to the ashram a couple times a week and meditate and chant.
Yeah, but nobody knew that you were the star child.
No, they really didn't. I mean, and from the standpoint, I was kind of awkward around, girls at the time, and that was, challenging. But that's still is the same, actually, I think, in some ways, because...
you're adorable. Don't say that.
He is adorable.
Yeah, so if you're single and you think I'm adorable, you can contact Suzanne.
That'll get this poor
Ping
guy
me.
off Match.
Ping
Match
me.
that'll get this guy off.
Get me off of Bumble. Jesus
That'll
Christ.
get him off Match.com, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
Just go into the cosmic web.
yeah, you'll find me.
Well, that's interesting too. Very, very interesting to me, because a true actor, or acting is innately within our makeup as human beings.
Totally.
So it's the ability, basically, or as the ancients perceived acting, were conscious beings who had to act in order for them not to be burned at the stake or crucified, because they had to be able to put on another face and shapeshift. And at the moment that they felt that it was time to let the word out, they let the word out, understanding that it would probably cost them their material existence. And that's the basis of true acting.
And the challenge that I've put myself to is being radically present, authentic, and transparent, but translate what is coming through my consciousness to the people I'm actually with and speak their language, so I can be intimate in communication with everybody I'm with in the paradigm that they live in.
In observance.
Radically present. Go
Wow.
back to that, how we stay here. There's nowhere to go. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people want to escape.
Right.
And whether it's,
Well, the core problem there is the problem of our culture is that there's an enchanted and disenchanted reality, or that there's matter and spirit, or God and and devil, or earth and heaven. I mean, we live in a society that's been inculcated with the notion of binary, that it's either or, and that is the
duality.
That is the mind, the duality. That is the mind of the intellect that has to perceive black and white. But when you look at the mind of your being, your authentic heart, that we all know, there's a capacity to reconcile that difference as a continuum that just is two aspects of one way of being. It's what we all innately know.
Well, to put that in maybe a simpler English, like the Zen practitioners would call that relative mind, right? And we as Americans simply sort of call that rational mind. And there are some teachings that call it the formatory apparatus, the thing that sees in two,
Yeah.
like the file cabinet, how we file things away, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we think
Or
a lot of times we think we're the file cabinet, sort
Or
of.
the historical mind. But where as a surfer or a person that plays tennis,
He's a surfer.
you get into the zone and you just flow, and you can see that you're thinking about all the different layers, but also there's this part of you that's just flowing, which is the flow state. There's all this work with
With this guy, talk. You just keep talking, because I think he deserves this. You keep talking.
Oh, gee.
I think he
Come
does.
on.
We're going to flow.
No, keep
We're
talking.
just
Where were you?
flowing. We're flowing in the flow state because it's all consciousness.
Right?
You are consciousness.
You, Greg, are really going to want this piped into your
You
house.
are the star
I can
surfer.
now listen to myself talk a lot.
The star
We'll
surfer.
pipe it into Wuda's tea center.
Muda,
Woody.
we're talking to you right now.
You are consciousness.
This comes
Wuda.
out of this teacup. He's like, is this coming out of my teacup? Whoa.
Nice. Keep talking.
So as I was saying, that the recognition that the world is not an obstacle to awakening to your own innate divinity.
Ah.
That
That's
there is
wonderful.
nothing that will prevent you from your own freedom in the midst of life. And that was why I was drawn to the spiritual tradition, where, the spiritual teacher said, see God in each other, see God in yourself, honor yourself. And that there's nothing in the world that you need to leave. You don't need to leave your family. You don't need to leave, your job in order to awaken to what is authentically, real in consciousness.
So you're saying you can wake up not just sitting in the cross-legged position, but use the world around you as the test to maintain this level of being how you're seeing the world.
I mean, like the movie The Matrix was one of my favorite metaphors in this way, because as you see in the later episodes, he began to recognize that the opponent was actually something that was part of him. Like when he was able to put his hand into Mr. Smith and shift that, or then see how because he was aware that the Matrix was made of the same thing that he was, and he was able to navigate like psychic aikido, a way to navigate through those challenges by then dancing with the reality from which he's created, rather than that there's an opponent or the other. I mean, that's the radical non-duality of that is the tradition of what they called Sahaja Samadhi, or awakening to the fact that everything in your life is just you being a pure creator in your own dream, and playing that you are the stage, that you are the actor, you are the conductor, you are the music, and you're the lighting, and you're the story.
So from a practical perspective, how does that make everything better? Or how does that make everything tangible?
Well, back to the hero's journey. When you recognize what we were talking about earlier before the show, about you have a choice about how you hold the narrative in your being at every moment of your life. And that moment in the hero's journey, which I love, where the hero is in that moment of like, there's no way out crisis.
That's Joseph Campbell for you guys. I want to
Yeah.
let that guy
point
out.
when they're like, okay, I'm done. The boulder's about to land on my head, or the dragon's about to eat me.
You've had enough.
And it's just like, but then there's that crack. There is no way out on that level of perception. But, on that level of perception where they say you can't solve the problem on the level of the thinking that it was created from, then that's the moment of freedom where the creative agency of the hero awakens to another narrative.
So you're the hero. You got a client in front of you. You got a really great client in front of you that might be a little formatory, a little rational-minded. How are you using this wonderful condition?
Well, the first thing that
in
comes
your
to
workplace?
mind, having not thought about this question before now, actually, that what I would do is immediately find a way that we have a shared narrative, because it's all about myth making and how we make meaning of every situation, and then find a way that we find that we're on common ground by being intimate about what's going on with the person I'm talking with, and then drawing out where we actually share the same story as two actors in the same play that are on the same side. Then we can then engage in a co-creative process to navigate from the challenge that's in front of us, without thinking of that challenge as an opponent, but as something we can create a pathway around.
So, but
You can find a solution
So
ourselves.
let's just
would you
say,
Yeah, for ourselves.
yeah, and the other.
And the other, but then when we bond that we're both on the same team, that if I find a solution for the challenge that we both face.
Right.
So in other words, the first thing is to enroll in the narrative that I'm not on your other side, I'm on your side.
Right.
First thing is find the common ground, and this applies in all domains of life. Find the common ground where we're in the story together as heroes, and then create a way that we can navigate as heroes in the hero's journey together to waken up to another way. So if I'm with a client where they're like presenting a financial problem or a stuck thing, or we have a situation in the markets, or they're concerned, find a way that we look at that from multiple different directions and see if there's a creative way.
so let's bring you into the moment. So here you are,
Yeah.
enlightened CFP, right? And in front of you have somebody that's very worried and very fearful. Your state of mind, your condition, how are you perceiving it? You're not perceiving it in that way. If you just sit presently with somebody and you hear that they're off in left field, what advantage is your elevated perception guiding you? How does that work?
Well, I mean, all of investment management is about taking opportunity and risk and managing the juxtaposition between the two, right? Because like, hey,
say that again.
taking opportunity,
Taking
growth,
opportunity.
how much money can I make?
How much money can I make?
But I'm afraid of losing money,
How much money can
or
I make?
not
I don't
having
want to lose money.
or not having enough money in the future, and then navigating the kind of greed, scarcity, or the fear or opportunity kind of arrangement, and then looking at those dimensions of our emotions in a financial context and look at what's really going on with the person. So what I do with people and with the projects and the businesses and the advisory work I do with think tanks and others is to look at what is the bigger context here? What is really going on underneath the surface on the project or problem at hand? And look at an innovative way to reflect on what's really the problem and what's a better question to ask. What's really going on?
And so if you can share how important critical thinking and objectivity are, which you're really, in knowing you're very open-minded. You're not in a locked perspective, and you're always kind of willing from
seeing things from a different vantage point.
Well,
so if you can share the importance
Let me
of
go.
that.
I'll go right to what you were asking about. Is like supposing as a client thinking about the fact that they have X amount of dollars and they want to retire in this many years, and they're worried about risk and the loss and all those things. And then there's a state of fear that's driving their choices that brought them into my office.
Right.
So then
Right.
I would first start by saying to somebody in a personal wealth management context, I want to learn about everything that drives them as humans, what their deeper meaning and purpose is. What is the most important kind of things? And if they, a lot of times people will come to me shortly after they've retired, and I would say, well, what are the things that are most meaningful for you, and what do you want to do with your life now that you don't have to work? Or all those kinds of questions lead to what is deeper for the person, and then to look at the strategies that they think they have created that are to get the things they want, and look deeper at what is actually necessary. And what is that they're trying to avoid, and what are they really afraid of, and to actually go to the depth of the fear with a perspective of objectivity in the way that you're seeing, and that not critical thinking, but to be able to discern, using discernment without critique or judgment, but discern the distinction.
So what we have here is a natural born leader.
How to navigate risk.
So this is what's really cool about this guy. This guy is off the freaking chain, because your sheer presence alone is going to bring a more elevated perspective, even from your client's perspective. And that's one of the gifts that comes with maintaining your perspective, is that anybody that winds up in your space is going to be better, because this.
Oh, unless they're not, and I'm having a bad day, but that happens for occasionally, where they're just like, oh, who's that guy,
Well, that's where your responsibility comes in terms of throwing that switch, and that's where your challenge comes in. That's where your challenge. Every day, right?
When we're all triggered by emotion.
But you must notice the moment somebody walks in, and if you're having a good day, and you're seeing things and not overthinking, but just receiving the information, all the gazillions of ways that sensorially we pick up from each other, you're able to ascertain what needs to be happening without even having to think about it, because you're receiving and sensing, and that's taking you into your structure.
Well, what you're saying reminds me of the things that I do in my business meetings with my partners, or with clients, or somebody I'm getting to know in a first-time meeting in a business context, or even social. I always like to check in first about what's going on emotionally, and if I know there's been a couple of instances with some recent events that I've been very stressed out or very unhappy with whatever is going on right before I get on a call with a client, and I just make sure to be intimate and take off the business hat and just say we're both human beings. We're talking about these people's intimate personal lives, so then I share with them where I'm at, so that creates a bond and a relationship, so they know that there's actually a human on the other end, and that I know that they know that I know that they're actually human as well, because finance is, in the sense that
that's it, people. Let's talk about money now.
Let's
talk about the money.
Let's talk about finance and economics, right? So if you look at economic theory as it was created, it's actually something that was born out of humanities. It's the money is born out of human relationships and human agreements, but it's become quantified because people attempting to rightly so, find a way to measure and keep record of. But that, how do you measure the taste of chocolate, right? So then that becomes the kind of the implication behind our economic theory is that there's so many unexamined assumptions in the quote science of economics or the science of capitalism or the science of finance.
Those could be limitations.
Those are structures that are organizing principles, but when you look at the assumptions underneath those organizing principles and give yourself the capacity to know that we can rethink those assumptions and come up with a better system, that's the work that I do, is to actually look with sophistication at the scientific layer, the social layer, the cultural layer, and the political layer that are underpinnings of the various economic systems and the institutions that influence those systems and the systems that are influenced by those systems, so that we can actually create a better model for humanity today rather than based on the thing that we've inherited. A very simple way of saying it is that the financial institutions and the economic system that we have were designed well for the time that they were created, but we're in a different time.
And you're redefining this structure.
Well, that's been my passion since I was
you're
young.
Share the bridge from finance as you relate to it to nature.
The one big lesson,
okay.
The one big lesson before he gets to that thing is that any being on the path in a moment has the ability to adapt and redefine culture in that moment to fit what's actually required. Because circumstances are shifting all the time.
Absolutely.
Especially now with the bio and nanotechnologies and all this
Mm-hmm.
internet and this wonderful phone that we have that gives us all of this information. Some of the ground rules and the social structures have shifted, and your ability to see what's required and what's needed gives him the ability to adapt. Like a good actor.
Like a good actor?
Like a good actor stepping into the moment for the first time with a structure, which are the old economic, but how we discover ourselves and how much of ourselves we bring through that moment to adapt to what's required of us makes you a great actor.
Yeah. Well, I think of myself as
Makes him a great actor.
we're cultural creative artists, like
Cultural creative artists.
I mean, think about people like Salvador Dali or
Why? When we got Gregory Wendt right here.
Mikhail Gorbachev or
Forget those guys. We got Gregory Wendt.
Yeah, thank you. But that's my point is that they gave themselves permission to be agents of change by acting in a way that inspired them to create a new form of reality. And we all have the power to do that. Every single one of you who are listening to this right now, you have the power to create reality in a new way and express yourself in a way that's authentic and engaging based on your creative spirit and the people around you's needs and love.
With the job that you have.
And
you
so-
can redefine the job that you have in whatever
Every
that
moment,
might be.
every moment.
In every moment.
And I'm challenged every day to think about what I'm doing today and how it could be done better.
Yeah, but that mindset could be
Anything.
a teen in Taco Bell working. He could be looking around at the structures around him. He doesn't have to go to sleep within a mindless structure. He can be perceiving it in a way to make it better.
Yeah, or how to, like he's on his break or she's on her break, and how to get along better with the other employees and how to find a way to talk to the boss about something that went wrong with the French fry machine. I mean, there's ways that we can navigate, and how you make those little micro decisions will define the path of the rest of your life.
Say that again.
How you make those micro decisions will define the path of the rest of your life.
How you make those micro decisions will define
The path of the rest of your life.
the path of the rest of your life.
You have
Gregory Wendt.
There's something that's very powerful about a phrase that I heard. There's nothing more powerful than right action in the moment. In other words, I don't mean right wrong, but I mean like
Right action in the moment.
What actually has the joy or the integrity or the clarity, because all of us have an innate sense of something better. So then to get to that place of what is good,
We hope that we have that innate sense
all
of
do.
something better and have not given up on it due to
the layers of programming and conditioning.
our Western education, so westernized, our fear-based perspective of each other, being afraid of each other. Most people are navigating. Most people are not navigating like you're navigating. People.
Remember that first day that Neo and Morpheus met, and Neo was like, "What are you talking about? I'm just some dude."
Right.
But he said, "No, you're the one. But every one of you is the one. Just wake up."
Yeah.
Nice. Every one of you is the one. Just wake up.
We just wake up.
Just wake up.
Greg,
Up the fuck we must wake.
Up
Yoda
the
said.
fuck, we must wake up.
That's what
We're
Yoda said. Up the fuck we must wake.
So, Greg,
That's
so
beautiful.
can you share for the
Oh my
listeners?
God, that belonged to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I got that from
I'm
Instagram
sorry.
or something.
All
I don't
right,
know.
whatever. It doesn't
It was
matter.
good. I had to use it.
Yeah, you used it good.
I wasn't planning to. What were you going to say?
So if you can share a little bit, because you mentioned programming. So if we look at neuroscience, our neural pathways are really mapped. So with something like money, for certain, we have some programming embeds that come from our parents, that come from society. If you can just share one simple way to reshift your relationship so it's more holistic, so it does mirror nature, because nature is so regenerative.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think what you're speaking about is a notion of resilience, that if you look in an ecosystem like a forest that's had a storm come through or a fire, there are principles that have been developed over 4 billion years of creating a path for life. I mean, I was just up in Yellowstone watching a place that was one of the most magical places where there was a forest fire, but there was like hundreds of little pine trees across, and I took a picture of it. It was amazing. I wish I had that picture to send you. So that you look at the forest, it was like what was devastation was actually thriving. And in the challenges that I've had lost in my life, there's a part of me that I read somewhere in a book or something.
Which one? Which challenge?
I mean, how many? I mean,
Pick one.
Bankruptcy, divorce, challenges, illnesses.
These are all things you've been through?
Yeah.
Wow.
My parents'
tell.
divorce,
The
my
guy-
own divorce.
The guy's a shining star. You can tell he went through anything in his life.
Yeah, I mean, I had to support a former wife who was very unwell. That put a lot of financial pressure on us, such that we had to file bankruptcy in order to keep going.
So in those moments, though, you're definitely turning up the conscious, paying attention.
Well, what I learned through those crises was the notion that there was an opportunity to face it in a new creative way. And then someone said to me something, or I read it somewhere, where when you look back at life with that benevolence in your heart, and you see that was the best thing that ever happened. We always will arrive back and say, it went that exact way because I wouldn't be in this amazing situation if it weren't happened exactly how that shit went down that was so bad.
Yep.
So then if you are in the middle of the storm and you remember at some point in the future there will be recognition that there's an amazing gift in this storm and this problem and this loss, and you go, I am going to find the gift that this is the best way this is going to happen, and I don't understand how, but I trust the universe that I live in the best way happens universe.
Right.
That no matter what
like
happens,
that.
that's it. That's the thing. That's the thing of like, no matter how bad it is and how shitty I feel right now, this is going to be seen someday as the best thing that ever happened to me.
And then what happens?
Well, then I don't know.
The trees grow, the
I
little
kind of
baby
lighten up a
saplings.
little bit, and in that moment, I'm like so stressed and I'm so angry or so whatever. But then I just breathe and I remember to just get still, and just get still,
Nice.
and find that place of stillness in my mind or my heart, but whatever I can pay attention to get that place that's underneath the storm,
And what does that allow you to do?
to see it from a different perspective. To see it from a different perspective, which is that whole thing.
Are you seeing it, or are you just seeing really what's going on around
or the
you?
situation, and then all of a sudden,
more the observer.
that's where the resilience in our where you're what the neuroscience of this, and you know about this, is that your brain locks into certain neural pathways to store trauma, and then creates structures around that want to preserve themselves, and the neuroplasticity, the capacity that we have for a brain to resiliently find new neurons and new pathways, is something that process of trying to stay stuck is in our personalities, in our ego structure, and our brain. So we have those three things working.
Our education, our social conditioning.
Well,
all of
those
that.
are all the societal
Outside,
versions
but
of that.
internal.
But the collective version of that personality, ego, and neurons becomes a zeitgeist challenge. But if we can shift that internally in the same way that we're referring to with these
Define zeitgeist.
it's,
Zeitgeist.
the zeitgeist means what's in the collective story.
Mind,
like what
consciousness.
what does society believe?
Okay.
And if you believe that it's like a glass ceiling Or you know that whole story about you have an aquarium and you put a piece of glass in the middle of it and the fish start swimming in that small section. You take the glass out, they keep swimming in a circle even though they can swim into the other side of the aquarium. That's like society's thinking that we have the capacity to just recognize today there's no glass there. Let's swim over there.
Nice.
So
That's beautiful.
that capacity to do that.
We can
knowing
swim over to our freedom.
There's just some, it's in the freedom is inside of us. It's not outside. It's not in a different situation. It's not with a different person. You know, it's like that song, Love the One You're With. Find a way to love what is, and then that will show you a path out of the trap you're in. Not that you have to stay stuck in that shitstorm, but that you will find a way to navigate this creatively when you actually allow that it's possible. But if you don't believe it's possible, you're not going to get very far.
I guess that's the result, isn't it? I mean, if we're going to really be free, we have to figure out how to throw those switches and see with a fresh pair of eyes in order for us to have this freedom. And then freedom is what?
Well, I want to bring the conversation back to finance.
Go.
And look to the very challenging situations that a state government will have with finance.
But that's pretty much what you're doing. You're allowing your clients to have freedom.
Well, yeah, or the people that I work with. I mean, there's areas that I work that are, you might call them clients, where I play a role as an advisory or a steering committee member or a guide, or people call me for advice on every number of things. So I end up giving counsel to people, whether they're my quote clients or not, in every kind of situation from some perspectives or another. But what I'm saying is that when you come to a point of stuck, either in a conversation about creating something with somebody or with a client that's like, I don't really know, I'm afraid about not having enough money when I retire. Well, then I start saying, well, then what is driving you right now? I start saying, let's just stop for a minute and talk about your relationship with fear.
Yeah.
And go to things where some financial advisors, and I'm not trying to distinguish myself to say I'm better, but I'm saying that the traditional approach to finance and financial advisory is not necessarily to talk about the person's emotional life or how they relate to fear. But I like to go there because ultimately a financial strategy is about protecting wealth for the future or making more money so there's more later. But it's kind of a fear-greed thing like I was talking about, so that to reflect on how we navigate those unknowns.
Nice.
There's the unknowns will never be known, and we have to find a way to manage our decision making coming from a place of strength rather than a place of fear.
Well, and the unknowns are the opportunity, because that's, when you step into that where all things are available.
Well, and also then coming to then the correct the direction of like, there are things that are unknown in the market. So, if you put money into certain investments, you don't know what will happen tomorrow, but we know what the person wants and needs with that particular piece of money. So then I get them back to, what do you actually know? Well, if they don't know the future or what will happen with that investment, but they know, what they need, what they want, and what their plans are for the next 5 years with that money, then that's building a story around what they know, and then navigating their fears and aspirations around what is known, and then letting the world of unknowns be what it is, but work within the probabilities to help people find a coherent pathway to then match their desires, their aspirations, and values to come up with a strategy that supports that.
Wow.
A very simple way of saying it is I tell people, tell me what your dreams are, and we'll navigate making money decisions to support that dream and whatever that looks like, rather than money for its own sake. Money for its own sake is part of the puzzle, but it's not the top priority.
What's nice is you're dealing with the past, and so it's like he's taking this like classic journey into healing space, or getting a person to a place where they can be present enough to see the future. So the challenge is dealing with the past, dealing with somebody's past, and so to get them back into the present so that they can actually see the opportunities that the future has to bring them.
Right. And how they want to create those opportunities. Because if the person says to me,
but once they're present, And
Well,
you
but they have to be present, and we have to get them to be emotionally
and then
present.
you show them their opportunities. Then they can start to see the picture kind of
So,
unfold in front of them. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
And also,
Yeah.
you're touching on something really powerful. You talk about
Nice.
greed. So we have fear. We were talking before you got out here that basically our saber-toothed tiger in this day and age is currency, because without currency, we don't have our basic needs: food, water, and shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So
In that system, right?
in that system, but it's just numbers. I mean, there's billions of people on this planet. There's trillions of dollars circulated every day. We have plenty of currency to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no end to the equation. You can't spend it fast enough. Yet we hold it off, the scarcity. So if we go into greed, if you can share the alchemy to transmute greed into generosity and what the return is on generosity from a financial model.
Well, that's really, really valuable. And I want to reflect a little deeper first
Yeah.
on the notion of generosity, greed, money, value, and look at what money is. If I contribute time and energy to your life that you value and you want more, I might say, well, in order for me to live and thrive, I need certain experiences and things so that I can give you my energy. So if you can make sure that I don't need to spend time with someone else to make sure I have a meal on my plate, can you help me support that? Well, then money is a means of exchange through sharing value in the context of beneficial relationships.
Right.
So then if you're struggling with money, think about what you have to give to the world and rethink what you think you have to give to the world, and find those who value what you love the most, and then relate to them better, offer them value, which is the generous spirit,
Yeah.
and then they will want to share more of what you have with themselves and others.
Yeah.
That creates the relational subjects through which money agreements happen. But then if we don't remember that layer, we get stuck in the numbers and the greed and scarcity game.
Yeah.
So then back to, that was some of the genesis of the creation of money,
Nice.
which could be a whole show in itself.
Oh, yeah.
But that's another day. But coming back into, what is this discussion around greed, scarcity, and what is that desire? Which is like, we look at abundance and value and sharing and thriving as a culture.
Right.
And then the great mother energy, the spirit of abundance that is, that is compassion, is about love, it's about better relations, about joy, about authentic expression and growth and all the things we've talked about. That's the archetype, or that's the principle that is an enlightened society. So when that is the basis of society, there's a spirit of abundance and sharing. But if we suppress that in a regressed society or a regressed context of relationships, that we don't have enough, we don't think that there's anybody that has value unless doing a particular thing because you're part of a machine, that regression, that reduced way is a limited way.
Well, even in your syntax, don't.
Right,
You can't do a not.
Yeah, right.
And so you've got the
Exactly.
challenge. You've got the challenge of an individual coming in
With that mindset.
in illusion.
Right,
In an illusion.
Right. We need to shift out
And
of that
so
to a
what
possibility.
do we need to even have fear? We need to have the imagination active in order to even have fears.
So then that's where the power of, like, there's a woman that I know that inspired me so much. She created a group called the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies. And she ran her business with the notion of, I maximize relationships over maximizing profits. And she created a very thriving business, right? Because she knew that her customers were relationships, her vendors were relationships, her bankers were relationships. And by focusing on the quality of those relationships and making sure they're well, that was enable her to have resilience back to the way nature works.
Right.
Because everything in all the animals in the forest or in an ecosystem have an innate sense of relating that is part of something that's beyond their understanding. But when we as humans have the human mind to perceive that, which plants and animals don't necessarily, that there's a larger order of things that we can be in harmony with and bring that back into the economy, then we can actually start finding a way that we think that there's a zero-sum game. It's me winning or you winning, but that's a reduced, diminished way of thinking about society and relationships. If we go, but if we look at where we have common ground and come up with some ground rules of where we can have common outcomes and creatively use the resources of 1 + 1 = 3, we can actually come up with a creative strategy by banding together where we thought we were opposed to then create something that creates more possibility. And then that's the essence of what I do with clients, but I also apply that same work in my work with think tanks and government leaders and the California Economic Summit, by then looking at ways that we come together in cooperation for the benefit of a community or a state or a project or an institution, because it's the spirit of finding common ground and knowing that we all ultimately share the same aspiration, which is a better future, then coming to where we can build on steps together in unity with people that might appear to be opponents to us, when we actually find out that we actually share some basic values.
Well, there's so many things in that.
Yeah.
You're talking about going from instinctual survival aspect of having the need to step on each other's head in order to survive, into a more evolved creative perspective, which will require the environment to be abundant in order for you to even begin to think that way.
Well, that's right. But I think what you were saying, Suzanne, that the environment already is abundant. We just have to recognize where there's an abundance. In some cases, it's very struggled where we have, okay, we got $100, but we have a $500 bill for our business today. What are we going to do? Because the client's cash will not come in until next week. What are we going to do to pay that $500 bill with $100? Well, then that's a situation of deep scarcity and challenge where maybe the two managers of a company are arguing with each other. But if we slow down and listen to each other, then we go, I can call that client because we can possibly give them an incentive to give us $480 a day earlier, and then we can call the vendor that needs $100 and say, can you wait a couple days? But then if we don't engage in letting go of the crisis from fight, and freeze, those three ways of being, into let's breathe and pause and see that there might be some ways to navigate together on this, and then come up with that creativity. That's where the joy spark, comes in. That's the moment of the hero's journey of just tapping that innate potential we have, which is that survival instinct of how humans have been creative. I mean, like, it's a really miracle that we're actually on the planet.
The survival instinct
but there's a miracle. But the human mind has been so creative to get us here.
Water, food, and shelter. So there's lots of different ways to make money. I can go steal somebody's purse, to rob a 7-Eleven. Right,
you could.
In order to
consequences,
make,
you could.
Well,
cause and effect.
Well, I could do that in order to get through my day. And let's go here. Let's challenge you a little bit, because you're dealing with people in abundance, right? So actually, a lot of my clients with a lot of money are not in the mindset of abundance. They think that their $1 million is not enough. Okay, let's shift
They're in
it.
Scarcity.
Let's say
that's why I shift them out of that scarcity thought to abundance thought. So
let's take you out of your office, because none of these people I'm going to be talking about are going to be walking into your office anytime soon. But eventually,
I have no money coming to my office asking for help.
And that's what we want to go. I want you to talk about how the hell, if I have no money and I have had bad habits, what are the top 3 things I can do to get myself back on track?
Well, let me talk about people that have been in my office that are spending their money till it's gone.
I want to know how you're going to get us back on track.
Yeah.
Because I have no money, and what am I doing wrong, and how can I shift that paradigm immediately?
Well, one of the things that I've told clients that are wealthy, hey, okay, if you lose all your money or you run out of money or you spend it all, what are you going to do? You're going to be like 90% of the planet who has no money that are fine today, walking down the street, doing a job, because what they're doing is finding creative. Every person who's successful in life, regardless of the amount of money they have, is that they're effectively relating to those around them, sharing love.
So what are you telling me? I have no money. I'm completely devoid of knowing where to go next. What's the first thing you tell me? I'm destitute.
My mind goes to a place about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from here called Terminal Island. It's a federal prison that I used to teach meditation in.
Oh, beautiful.
And I remember having the gumption to say to the inmates, but you have to really, before you say a word to anybody in prison, you have to know that you believe it and that you feel it and you've experienced something like this. Otherwise, it's just bullshit.
Yeah, they're going to call you on it.
Right, and they can smell bullshit better than anybody I've met. So then I had to find a way that I got true about what I'm about to say, which is we're all in the prison of our own mind. I get to walk out of here, but you don't. But guess what? I don't get to leave the prison of my mind that is troubling me. So I have to find the pathway out of that as you do. And if you're free in this place, you may be freer than the people that are walking around out there or driving Rolls Royces, because I know a lot of people that are not free. And that's the path of ultimate freedom. Because I remember being there and walking into the courtyard of the prison and seeing somebody clipping the roses or, talking to a friend and realizing they're having a joyous experience. Back to the JoyScore. I'm like, that is living in the moment. And that's something that is powerful that everybody can have. And
how do
coming
you turn that into dollars? I'm still destitute. Now I'm present. I still got no money.
He's stuck, Greg.
No, yeah, it's great.
None of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a possibility
Your
of a
example
smile.
stuck.
A smile that comes with somebody that is in that situation, because I have been destitute. I remember one of those days when I was in college and I didn't have any money in my bank account. I had no gas in my car and no food in my fridge. And I was driving home going, I have no idea where I'm going to get any money in the next week because, And I remember that moment of the irony of feeling trapped, but at the same time a sense of freedom in this moment, because that was just numbers and a story in my mind. And of course, I needed to get food that week and all that stuff, but giving myself the freedom that there is something, and I'm not diminishing poverty. I mean, I deal with a lot of people that are in poverty in the work that I do in the economic development sphere and stuff. So what I'm going to say very directly is everybody knows somebody they can reach out to improve the quality of that relationship, to creatively engage in a constructive conversation, to shift the way that we relate to the situation we're in, no matter where you are. Unless you're in solitary confinement, you're probably not listening to this. But the point is that there's always somebody.
I'm out. I just got out of jail. I'm destitute.
Yeah.
I'm free now.
There's always
Allegedly.
something. And you always come back to your own innate sense of instinct. Like all of us have an instinct and just follow your gut. But when it's your reactive mind and your instinctive, authentic, like, I've got a good feeling about this. Got to listen to that part of ourselves that just is that guiding light that got us through, right? And that is what is going to guide you to know, well, and if you're hearing this, who's that one person I should call? Well, the first person that comes to mind, call them and allow a possibility that something magic can happen. Allow the possibility that
put yourself out there with a proper mindset.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
So shift that mindset.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
And don't forget to ask for help. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I have an opportunity. So that's step one.
Yeah.
Right? Shift my attitude. Reach out, let people know what my circumstances are. And now what?
Well, then, hey,
I get a job. I'm making $12 an hour.
Hey, I mean, I've known people.
How do I turn that $12 an hour into $1 million?
Well, the thing is, this first thing is to ask that question clearly. What is $1 million going to do for you right now that you don't already have? I know people that have more than $1 million that are miserable. Okay, so then let's get real clear about, it's not about money, it's about your relationship to reality and recognizing the abundance where you already are.
I still want to hire you. I want $1 million. I got $12 an hour.
Great.
How, what can I do?
Well, I mean, a lot of people that I know of that are billionaires or people that I know who are, they didn't fight the situation that they were in. They used their creative strength to build on what they have and find the value of exactly where they are. And every one of us know where there is something valuable that they can focus positive attention on to create something better. Every single one of us has at least one moment or one situation of grace in every moment that we can focus on. Because there's a spiritual path that you know about, the spiritual path of beauty, which is one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard about a tradition in the history, is that the spiritual path of beauty is to be radically embracing that no matter how ugly the situation, there is something
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And that by holding that intention that you're going to find the beauty and the pathway of light in any situation and intending intensely that you're going to, that provides you the way out, because the universe that we live in, there's always a way out of this situation.
All right, so I made $12 an hour, made $500 a week. I managed at the end of the year to save $2,000. I'm walking in your door, I got $2,000. What am I going to do with it?
I would say to everybody that walks in my door with the money, well, it depends, because there's no formula for anybody. And the fact that people believe that there's a formulaic way to do this is, you know...
You got $2,000 and that's all you had. What would you do with it?
But denying the fact that the money is not separate from you. The money is an expression of your energy held in a form that feeds and supports your living. So depending on what your living situation is and your life and your persona, every single person will have a different answer to what to do with that money, which is why I always come back to life with that person. Let's tune into you. What's going on with you right now, person? What's going on with you?
What are you going to do? Tell me to invest in windmills and sustainable green?
Well, I mean, it's like, you imagine walking into a store full of medicines, herbs, and vitamins and stuff, and you say, so what's good in here? What should I take? Well, then if the person doesn't actually ask you what's going on in your moment, they're not going to be authentically giving you a solution, because money is not a universal constant. It's something that only lives in relationship to what is the situation for a person's life, or an institution's life, or a city's life, or a state's life, or a company's life. It's an energy. It's like, oh, what should I do with electricity? What's the best thing to do with electricity? Well, it depends on what you want to do. Well, what kind of machine are you? Well, do you have any batteries? I mean, how long do you want to keep your lights on for? Because if you don't have any batteries, you got to keep this juice in a battery. But if you got plenty of battery power, you can spend it on the next battery.
I got 3 or 4 rich people I'm going to have call you immediately, because they need to hear you, need to be in your presence.
But Greg, as you're talking, and if we bring this into the spiritual sense, because Lakshmi is a great teacher. She's a deity from India.
An archetype.
But she works with money and the flow of money. And Mother Nature works with the flow of energy of giving and receiving, and how important it is. And when you talk about quality of life, how it's been mirrored to me at those times where I'm like, I feel like maybe a little constricted or something. But then I listen, that energy, that archetype is always encouraging me to give. Oh, you need that? Like could you give a little? And it's happened many times over. And she'll be specific, like, you need to give that person $50. And don't question, don't ask, don't take anything in return.
Right.
Well,
it's a spirit of generosity that... but also it applies in your attention. I think I say to people sometimes, I'm an attention venture capitalist, because my attention is the most valuable asset, way more valuable than money. And and each of us have that power of where we put our attention, including do we want to put our attention on the things in our mind that are driving us batty? Or do we want to put our attention on the spirit possibility of a creative force inside of us?
Well, you're saying go back or get present and see what's around, what opportunities are around you.
Put your attention on the possibility, not the problem. So what you were talking about, what I love about Lakshmi, she has 4 arms in some of her archetypes. One is bestowing blessings. One is a weapon to boundaries. The other one is a book of wisdom, and the other one is a hand that has an infinite amount of wealth coming out of it. But then they're all 4 equally valuable, because in certain situations for wealth, you have to know when to say no, where the limits are. In other situations, you have to look at your innate wisdom. In the other one, you have to just offer a blessing of light. And in some situations, you have to use currency, which is one of the aspects. And there's a group called Terra Genesis International.
We got like 1 minute.
And there's a lot of groups that are working on this, but there's 8 different types of capital. And money is only one of them. But if you look at a society and all the dimensions of capital, natural resources, relational resources, intelligence, data, information, those are all different ways of capital, and we have to manage our cultures and our personal and our institutional financial money capital with all those other things in balance. And that's the essence of our next talk when we get into what I'm actually doing in society in my firm and my consulting group with Living Economy Advisors and all the projects we're developing in addition to managing money.
Here's one of your quotes that you put down here. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and beheld that service was joy. Tagora. Why that one? That's a good one, huh?
It's so juicy. It's so good because I acted and beheld that service is joy. I mean, what joy I've experienced by just offering you the service of being here to share my insights, my inspiration. But look at what that has created for you and for everyone who's listening,
my
and
goodness,
for
what a
me.
blessing.
But then that service of joy of like intending that I'm going to be of service to you by then accepting your invitation to say, oh, okay, I'm going to drive down and spend the evening. And well, then that is like, I came out of service.
Yep.
But then the joy I have is look how much more we've created, and look at, I get to come away from this great feeling.
Yeah.
So then there's that knowing that if I just give a smile or I give a little bit of energy and trusting my instinct to where to give it, that's like investing attention, where you put your energy, making sure that it will thrive.
That's
And-
Gregory Wendt, everybody. How do we get you? How do we find you?
I'll put all your links down there.
yeah.
But at stake.
www.gregwendt.com. You can find me, Gregory Wendt, on LinkedIn.
You can also contact this show, and we'll be able to put you right
Exactly.
in touch with this guy if you feel like it. But listen, you are a joy,
Aw,
and you are a blessing.
Thank you.
You
And-
are a joy.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Run that thing.
The
Run that promo.
number one and then the video.
Yeah. Number one, and then the video. Gregory Wendt, you are awesome.
Thank you so much, both of you, for letting me be a
Wow.
part of here today.
Wow.
Thank you. You're welcome.
See you soon.
Yeah.
T-Sip.
Yeah, we talked. You talked. We didn't get into tea.
No, we talked a little bit before you.
That's a thing. You know.
What a trip.
right?
But you know that I know
Let's get you out of that mess over there.
Yeah.
Tangle you. And we got this wonderful promo show. Matt's music. And then we're going to see Matt's...
Cross your mind, you flatter the concept of you and I caught in your sheets. But when I see your eyes, oh, oxygen's out to breathe. Oh, casual love and live for more in disguise. But go ahead and write me down in your heart. But I'm the type of love you write in pencil on my heart. Times when you're alone, you'll go ahead and erase my trace.
Right
Right
there.
there.
Right there.
You might need to move the mic a little bit out of
Putting
the way.
headphones on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we got this going, and then you're going to overlap that video as soon as that thing ends, right?
Was it playing right now?
Yep. Well, not your video yet. We got the promo. Promo's done. Video's playing?
Yeah.
All right, good. We got a few minutes.
Come go whenever you like.
Hey,
All good
you
here?
can pull that thing
A
closer
little
to
bit
you.
closer and a little bit down.
You can pull it closer to you. There you go. Both like 4 inches.
What? Okay.
Have the musician
Sweet.
And
Yeah, that's a tough act to follow right there, by the way.
Oh my God!
Holy
What
crap.
a trip! No, man.
He's a lot more enlightened than I am, so.
I doubt it.
We all access. Okay, here's the song. We all access our enlightenment.
So we're
Right.
this is Matt Kalin. He's in the studio right now. And you're watching his video to his new single. So let's be sort of quiet so we can appreciate that song. That's Matt. He's in the studio right now. Part of that.
Man,
Man, well, the band. We're watching
Just casual love.
Okay. 2 minutes. Another 2 minutes. We got Matt Kalin in the studio, guys. If you're watching me here, you can go watch it at Suzanne Toro Official or at JoyScore.
Yours is on your page.
It's on my page. I guess it's on. Is it on this link, this live link? So if you go down to the live link, you'll be able to click right on it, right on this page. Ellie, if you want to watch the produced version of it, you can find the link right there on that page that you're watching. You scroll down to the comments and see the link, and you can watch the produced version of it. Tell other people you got that. Sometimes what happens is when they do that, the sound doesn't show up. The sound shows up. But I hope it shows up on the feed. Alright. Sometimes the sound doesn't show up on the feed. Is the sound showing up on the feed?
I think it is. I can.
What? They're able to hear it online? You think? Sometimes you can't hear it.
They're quick
seconds. Hey, welcome back to JoyScore Live. This is Thomas Ardavany with Suzanne Toro. And we have Matt Kalin in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Kalin, there he is.
Good to be here.
You got him on there, Thomas? Do we see the beautiful Matt Kalin?
Oh.
Saxophonist, musician. Hey,
Look at that smile.
hey, look at that smile. Listen, musicians have all of that magic, and you guys take so much of it for granted because you get up there and do it, but you're doing the thing that all of us wish we could do. I mean, the rock star mentality. When did you first get into this idea of being a musician or even being a little rock star with all these wonderful bands that you played with? I mean, my goodness. The Violent Femmes.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else
fun.
have you played with?
You know, I've played one song with a lot of people. Kind of the one song.
Hey, that's more than most.
Yeah. I've played with some great people throughout my career, and I won't even mention their names, but it's been good
You
stuff.
won't mention? Why not? It's good.
I don't know.
Why not? It makes you.
I've done like one song with Social Distortion. I've done one song with Burt Bacharach. I've done
Burt
one
Bacharach.
song with Louis Belson on drums.
What's your favorite?
You know.
What's your favorite venue? There's a lot of reggae down here.
Ooh, my favorite venue to play. Oh, well, my venue goal is still the Hollywood Bowl, and I'm working for that one. I'm working towards that. I was there last night and kind of pulled some
That's a
vibes
great venue.
in. Yeah.
They're in the Greek. Have you played the Greek?
Haven't played the Greek. That's the other one that I want to get
those
in
are
on.
great venues, both
Yeah.
of those. All right, we're going to envision you right there.
Yes.
With Manuel the band.
With Manuel the band.
All right.
Absolutely.
So the journey of a musician. So you guys are creating that magic every time you get in front of an audience. You pick up that instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, when was that? When did you get bit with that bug?
You know, I got bit with it, believe it or not. I had always been a musician and started out, you know, probably at 6 taking piano. My Uncle Harold was the drummer for the Jimmy Dorsey Orchestra.
Oh my
wow.
goodness!
He would go out on tour and he was a
So you'd hear
sponsored artist.
about him all the time.
Yeah.
So
especially on Meatloaf night, which was Monday. When Uncle Harold would come over.
for dinner for meatloaf.
Yeah, but he gave me a snare drum and wrote what I was supposed to practice on the drum. And that kind of got me started into feeling the music. And I had always taken piano, and then I switched over to clarinet when I was in elementary and junior high school.
clarinet, I know how to blow the clarinet.
I know it's kind of dorky, but I used to go into my my teacher, Abe Most, was the director of the Sonny and Cher Orchestra.
Oh my goodness!
And so he had this room about the size of the room that we're in, filled with instruments. And I
Wow.
would walk in just
Like a kid in a candy store.
in awe. And every now and then I'd say, "Can you play that one for me?" And he'd pull it out and just go on the thing. And he inspired me so much. And we're talking about joy. I mean, that just, you know, as like, you know, an open sponge. at
Yeah,
that
So
time.
he was like your
Yeah.
mentor. He was the guy that
He
was
was a-
actually feeding you the love of the music, or that magical little thing that allowed you to realize that, wow, that's something you want to do, huh?
For sure at that age, definitely.
amazing
Yeah.
how you like. I mean, musicians too are like sponges. I mean, you guys are really measured on your ability to come in and adapt to whatever's going on around you.
Right.
And that's a lot of this creative impetus is you're having your ability to adapt, which is indicative of the love of the artist. You know, that's always magic to me.
Right. And, we're musicians, we're inspired by what other artists bring to us a lot, I mean, and you'll hear something, oh, I really love that part, and you'll want to kind of create something similar or be inspired by that,
Well, you guys
from
have
other
you guys have
musicians.
an ear. What is this? What does this mean when you say you have an ear?
When you have an ear, you can adapt. I'm a real ear guy too, so it's funny you mentioned that. You can put me in any situation, and I'll be able to just listen to a little bit. Like if I'm sitting in somewhere and people say, well, "What do you want to play?" and I'll say, "Whatever you guys are playing. What is your band? Whatever you guys are doing." I can meld in. I listen a little bit. You fit in, and it's kind of like a thing a part about life, really, in a way, like a band. It's like a family, and when you're working with other people, you want to blend in, right? You don't want to just stick out and be in the front and go and show off. You want to blend in and be a part of the group.
Well, there must have been
Yeah.
a point at which you're looking at your uncle and you're watching, and then there got to be another transition to where you realize, hey, maybe I could
Totally.
actually do that. Where were you
Absolute-
when
that
you
was-
realized that moment?
College.
What was
I
happening
was totally
there?
in college. I went into college as a geology major. I had a professor who said, maybe you should
What college
switch
was
over
it?
to music. Humboldt State University.
Humboldt State.
Yeah, NorCal. and all of a sudden something kind of hit me, and I started playing parties in a band. And
What happened? What do you mean
realizing,
something
this is
kind of
fun.
hit you? I mean, that's a pivotal moment.
It
I
was
mean,
a very pivotal moment.
what
I
in-
realized I wanted to be a musician.
What instrument were you playing when it hit you?
Saxophone.
Oh,
I
the
was playing
sax.
yeah.
The sax is such a passionate,
Yeah.
powerful instrument. I mean, that's like the most
It
dominant.
commands everyone's
It
attention.
commands
Who
everybody's
wouldn't know?
attention.
I just wanted to do it because
You're the secret
clarinet
sauce.
was like, and sax. Yeah, I can play in a rock band. You
Yeah.
know, I can play rock.
Have anything to do with the girls?
Well,
Getting the girls?
perhaps. Even though I let's just face it, never really happened for me. The big fro, the big glasses.
Yeah,
I was not a chick magnet at the time.
Yeah, but how you
Yeah.
blew that sax? You must have come off the stage going, "Hey."
Yeah, there's moments for sure. Yeah. We're not talking about that right now, though. But yeah,
That's definitely where you want to go if the guy don't want to talk about it.
You're like
Yeah.
this. Well, talk a little bit about harmony, because what you were saying before we got to college, how you, rather than sticking out, we would look at that like,
Yeah.
look at me, kind of more of an egoic, and it definitely a sax player gets that like special moment. You're the secret
Right.
sauce that comes out there and everyone's like, whoa. But then you retract and be in harmony. Can you share a little bit about the importance
Sure.
of that and how you take that from the stage into real life?
Yeah, I'd rather be the sax player that blends in to the project, and then you have your one moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where you come out and you shine and you make that moment special.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's true. It's like being in an actual band, even just working with musicians, just like on a kind of a one-off project.
Right.
You really have to blend in and be part of the group, and like you said, in harmony with yourself and the other people you're working with and your instrument, and let's not forget about your audience, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Because they're who you're really doing it for.
When did you wake up
know?
to that idea that it was actually the audience that was?
I always woke up to it. From the very beginning.
How do you teach that? You teach music too.
I do teach music.
So I mean, what are some of the stages that you got to take these people through?
Yeah, well, I fear.
You take them through fear?
I try
you give them
and-
fear.
I try and calm their fear.
Like, is this like a military
It's
class?
interesting because I taught 40 piano students today, and I had one of the students. It came up, and they're young, they're 10, 12,
Yeah.
and one of the students came up and says, "I'm really scared about to be in this class today, and I don't know if I can do it." And I said, you can just stand to the side and just blend in and just listen and absorb. I won't ask you a bunch of questions, and then I'll put you to the keyboard and
Right.
and you can just have fun with it. At the end of the class, she was just like beaming, this
Nice.
kid,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
So what-
empowering.
Yeah, what's your relationship to that fear factor these days? How do you manage that? There must be some gigs, like when you do them, you do probably get a little. How do you manage the nerves? How do you manage to find your way back into the space to be effective?
Yeah, I don't. Honestly, I don't get super nervous in front of a big crowd. I get more nervous getting ready, more than anything. Like I'm a nightmare to be around half hour before the gig. I'm just a swirl. Sorry, honey. I'm just a swirl
Yeah.
of mayhem.
But isn't that part of your
But
process?
Thank you so much.
It's part of your
That is
process.
totally my process.
But what happens
And it
between
works.
that crazy state of mind and then the one that all of a sudden you pick up that?
You
what
know what?
happens?
The more the merrier. The bigger the crowd. I don't know. I love being on stage and being an entertainer and sharing what I have as a musician with people to make feel good. To make them feel good. And
You just certainly do that. We were at the 4th of July. I've been trying to get to see you a couple times this year, but the one time I did get to see you was at the Seal Beach 4th of July
Yeah.
celebration. And, we were jamming, we were dancing, we were just going crazy
Yeah.
at that place. I mean, the amount of if you think about how much this society pulls from music to keep our heads up.
mm-hmm.
Like I use music 2-3 hours a day. I got it going on. I got it going on my headphones. Different musicians, different things are keeping me. Like I'm feeding off of this external vibration to inspire me to keep moving.
Well, it takes us so many different places. I
Right.
mean, even playing it, if you can share, you play a lot of different varying genres with the saxophone, and so you go a lot of different places.
every now and then I'll get in that zone and I'll close my eyes and I will. I mean, maybe it sounds cliche, but I will definitely lose myself in a moment. Pretty much at every gig I play.
Well,
there's that one moment
for you.
that I lose
For you,
myself.
that's a cliche because it's part of your job. But for a lot of us, and maybe for some of the audience, losing themselves that might be a foregone conclusion for them unless they're drunk or unless they're doing something that allows them to go away.
Yeah.
But what is this losing yourself? What is that?
Oh,
I mean, you take that for granted. I have a sense of what it is and how relative that is to maintaining my well-being. But that's something that definitely elevates our joy scores. That's definitely something when we lose ourselves. Are we actually losing ourselves or are we actually finding ourselves?
we're finding ourselves. I like that.
We're actually more finding who we really are in that moment as opposed to living through some sort of convention, right?
Yeah,
Is that how you describe it?
It's interesting because the group that I'm playing with now, Manuel the band, I will never forget the first time that I went down and played with them, and I was standing next to George Madrid, our pedal steel guitar player, and it was kind of like my turn to take the solo, and this was a harmonious. I'd never played with them before, and I had just. And all of a sudden, I just closed my eyes, and it was like, gosh, I don't even know how to explain it. Losing yourself in there, but finding yourself, and it's that moment where you really feel it in your heart. You're, oh my God, I'm so grateful to be able to do this.
And as you're doing it, you're
As
actually
you're doing
reflecting.
it, yes.
As you're in that motion.
Yeah. And I remember that happened at that time, and when I realized I really wanted, I was like, oh, I need to be a part of this project, At that moment, it happens with me. I play with a Swedish group, and every time I go over there, and play with them, there's always that one moment in the two where it's like your heart kind of jumps, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is
Yeah.
But you're
and-
thinking and feeling that, but still able to navigate the music, pick up from your surroundings, feed your audience. I mean,
You're very present.
I mean, it must seem like
Yeah.
you're the center of the universe at that point.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, and that's something that we all aspire and strive to do, and that's the gift that you have of just being a musician and doing it every day and doing your gigs and your job actually brings that level of enlightenment to you. I mean, there must not be a time as a musician that actually has a gig or a group or a support where you're just not feeling really grateful.
Yeah.
You know that, and especially with
Super grateful.
especially with your band. Tell us about this band.
The band. It's
What are the names of these guys? What's the name of the drummer?
it's Manuel Frobro on drums, Brandon Charlesworth on drums.
Brandon Charlesworth.
Yeah, Frobro. He's got
Frobro.
big ass hair.
Big ass hair.
Yeah,
I
big
saw a
ass
picture
hair.
of him.
Yeah. Manuel Grajeda is our kind of leader, and obviously Manuel the band. He's like our chief songwriter and chick magnet, so to speak. He's single, ladies. George Madrid playing pedal steel guitar, and George is a big part of the Long Beach music scene with other groups and other projects. And
You're an LBC local too.
He's stellar. Yeah.
And
yeah.
who else you got in there?
Richard Fernandez is playing trumpet and trombone. Wicked horn section in this group.
Yeah. So
Wicked.
you have trombone.
You guys have a huge
Yeah.
event
Sax.
coming. You
And
guys, who else? Who
Oh,
else?
Kevin Nowaki on bass.
Kevin Nowaki. So
Kevin
you guys have a
Nowaki.
huge event coming up soon, right?
We're this Saturday we're playing at the Music Tastes Good Festival. It's not our first festival, but it's like our first real big music festival
Yeah.
gig. And that's Saturday. We hit at 1:00, and it's gonna be really.
And that's here in
really
Long
good.
Beach,
That's here
right?
in Long Beach, yeah.
And it's called the Music
Music Tastes Good.
Tastes Good. Yes,
Music
it does.
tastes good.
Can you move that mic down a little bit so we can see your pretty face?
Ah.
Okay, there you go. Now
How's that?
direct your voice to it now.
9:29 at.
There you
that's
go.
a
I'm
good
pretty
number.
sexy.
9:29.
There you go.
I'm
You
pretty
got it.
sexy, so I need to be saying
Here we go.
There you go.
better.
Thank you, Thomas.
Cool.
So, and are you guys playing out in the desert too?
We're playing out in the desert next week in the Coachella Valley,
Yeah.
and we got a great write-up
Yeah,
review
in
from
Orange
OC
County.
Weekly and as well as Coachella Valley Weekly.
Yeah.
So I'm feel really blessed to be working with these guys, the young musicians. There's like fire in this
Yeah.
band. you
Putting a
know
little
what I
pep
mean?
back in your step.
Not only put a lot of pep in my step. Not only that, though, we're talking about joy. I tell you, this music it brings so much
Yeah, it's-
joy to people. It's a really unique sound, and we're so grateful to be able to do it for one. But you know,
And what
people
genre are you
really
guys
dig
putting
it.
you in? Because I was like, what is this?
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know.
because it's not really.
It's not Americana, but it's
No.
not rock.
It's a little blend.
It's music.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Cool music.
Yeah.
Have you
It's-
ever wished you were somewhere where you're not? Is this what you want to be doing? Is this where you thought you'd be? Is this something that you've just settled into and you're just going to ride this wave out?
Good question. You know, I never know where I'm going to be, and I never know where I'm going to be the next day, really. But
Do you ever imagine it stopping?
no,
Can't, right?
no.
Can't.
You know, people say, "So what are you going to do when you retire?" And I'm like, "Retire? What's that?"
You will always be playing.
I love playing for one person or 100,000 people. You know what I mean? And I don't see myself ever stopping.
You know what's cool is you're
doing this.
you're definitely expending a lot of energy when you go do this. So your life must
Yeah.
be set up in such a way where you're taking in a lot. It says your adventure, you like the outdoors, you have a beautiful wife.
Yeah.
You're a family man, right?
Yep.
And so how do these other things feed you? I mean, do you conscientiously do a workout? Do you conscientiously go certain places to kind of wake up or help you even evolve further into your musical mindset? What do you do? How does that work? How do we balance our life with our art?
Surprisingly, walking the dog is a real good one.
Yeah, that is a good
Taking
one.
the dog for a walk.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's a mega chill time for me to think, to reflect a little bit. I know it sounds odd, but it's
No.
it's really good time by myself.
The dog likes it
not
too.
Not in this space. It's not.
Yeah,
Because these are the little keys that to a listening audience. You're a musician, and you've been doing this for a pretty long
time,
and
Yeah.
you've been able to sustain the inspiration. A lot of people might get after something for a couple of years and then get dissuaded, put the thing down. Life might take them away. You must have established a sort of a lifestyle where you're actually living in order to feed the music. Maybe or something like that. So when you're walking the dog or you're what was the latest adventure that you went on?
Constantly. The latest adventure I went on was Lisa and I went to Costa Rica over the summer, and I brought a travel sax with me, like a little tiny
Baby
horn.
one.
And sure enough, we ran into some friends that we had met previously down there, went to the guy's restaurant and had this jam that
Nice.
was in the jungle. I mean, literally in the jungle. It was so magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a magic night, you know.
And so that's an unforeseen. But
Yeah.
you're always I guess you're always not so far from your instrument. How does that shift? How does perceiving the world as a musician? How do you see the world? Are you does all of this being tuned into frequency and sound? I mean, how does that affect your moment-to-moment existence, even in and amongst a group of people? How are you navigating? Like, do you find yourself more keyed into the ear? Are you
More sensitive.
Always listening.
always listening?
Always listening. Always listening. Maybe sometimes selective listening at home, but
Well, you have to have a break, right?
Yeah.
Your job is about listening, so you need
right,
a break.
right. But always hearing something in music, and you know, there's amazing music in nature. You know, I mean, unbelievable music in the wind. Or
How does that happen?
or-
Can you put yourself into some environment? When was the last time you were inspired completely by nature?
Ooh. Well, it definitely. You know, last time I was inspired by nature actually was just down here in Southern California at San Onofre just a couple of weeks ago. So beautiful, the water so
Yeah, it's so pretty.
warm.
Were you surfing?
Yeah.
Oh, you're surfing?
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways in which you get in touch, right?
Indeed, surfing, skiing. I used to do a lot of ski mountaineering, and that gets you into places you could never possibly imagime yourself.
Yeah, I
And,
showed
know,
how you carry your little
yeah, and I'm-
avalanche tube.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking about one, time in particular when my friends, everybody pulled out at the last minute, and I'm like, well, I've got my time, I'm going, It's possibly even being a family man. And so I drove up to the backcountry, to Tioga Pass, and hiked up literally to the highest with my skis on my back.
Nice.
And a pair of shorts and everything. And I'll never forget being out there by myself on that one particular day out there, and just so quiet and not a soul around. And I'm thinking, it's possible nobody's ever even been in this spot before.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah, and that was really inspiring musically,
Yeah.
So
me.
just that's interesting. The silence or the space
Yeah.
or the moment that you had with yourself reflecting, you said that for me is musical.
Definitely.
Connect us.
Yeah, I mean, the whole aspect of being out there in nature, you feel God presence, you feel spirit, you feel altitude dizzy.
That's right. That altitude is.
Yeah, and you feel like it's inspiring. Yeah.
What is this
It's
God?
very
What is this
inspiring.
God? What is this God presence? What is that?
Ooh. Wow, how did this all get here, and how did I end up in this spot?
Yeah.
And then
In
you're-
this spot, and how did I for some reason drive myself to want to throw on a huge pack with skis and hike 8 miles in my ski boots straight uphill
Yeah.
to the top just to
That's-
be in
that's
this
some
just to
discipline.
be in this one spot,
Yeah.
But now you're in your
And-
spot, and you're probably not asking yourself that question. You're just in that spot, right?
Yeah, you're in that
because you
spot.
earned your way to that spot, and
Definitely.
now what happens?
You get up enough courage to ski down.
So there is a bit of a moment on top of the mountain where you're seemingly in tune with nature. You and
Absolutely.
nature are not separate at that point.
Definitely.
And that's where
Yeah.
probably these musical epiphanies come in, right? Things occur.
For sure. I have a place out in Joshua Tree now, and that's really, really inspiring me a lot.
So what do you go out to Joshua Tree and what do? You just sit.
I take my horn up into the rocks, into the big rock formations.
Oh my gosh.
And play up in these rock formations, and the sound bounces off the walls.
So how do you know?
Yeah.
So when you're in a situation like that, how do you know it's time to play? or is there any cognizant sense of I'm just sitting, and then when is there a transition that I'm going to play now, or is it all of a sudden just like I'm just playing now?
He's a good listener.
Yeah, really. Depends on how far I hike in and where I'm at and what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll find a spot. I have a place out in the, where the Alabama Hills is?
Alabama. I don't know.
No, it's the Alabama Hills.
In Joshua Tree?
That actually is in Lone Pine.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've got a spot out there where I drive the car to, and I walk maybe a quarter mile in to this like little cave thing. And I blow in there for like a half an hour.
Yeah.
But you go into the cave thing, so walk us into the cave.
Yeah.
So you're walking us into a cave.
Yeah.
Go ahead, walk us into the cave.
Open my case, take the horn out. Ooh.
Isn't
and it
that
sounds
nice?
just like this. I'll kind of jam a little. I'll maybe kind of.
Oh, you're rushing it. You're rushing it. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wait
He's
a
a
second.
sax player.
No, but he's rushing it.
You know what? I'll tap into maybe.
No foreplay. No foreplay before you play.
He's a sax player.
So if you're looking at ideal circumstances before you blow that horn, like
yes,
like ideal circumstances, like does it just come out of me being immersed in my environment, and then the horn is reflecting of me being in that environment? Is that like an ideal artistic way to describe it?
When I'm playing out in nature like that, whether it's in Joshua Tree or Alabama Hills or up in the mountains or something, I like to tap into other players. Like I'll tap into like John Coltrane or something, who was a real improvisational, real spirit connected player.
Yeah, soulful.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tap into something that I normally wouldn't do, which because I play a lot of pop music and rock music and reggae and funk and ska and stuff like that. So maybe I'll tap into something that's a little more connective, in your soul a little bit when I'm playing out in nature. And in Joshua Tree, I'm really starting to.
It's very prehistoric out there.
Yeah, and once again, it's the quiet out there. I can go to our place out there on the dirt road and not see anybody for 3 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not even a car will drive by. Nothing.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful film out called Blaze. If you guys haven't seen this film called Blaze, and you're a musician, you're musically oriented, go see this beautiful film about
very
this
soulful. You'll love it.
extraordinary artist.
Okay.
And I learned a thing or two watching that film about possibly the mindset of a musician. But in terms of, let's get into like the impact, like optimal opportunity or an optimal way that you impact your audience. All of these vibrations and these frequencies that you send through the environment that impact your audience, there's like qualitatively these are very different, because we can start to define a great player from somebody that's not a great player, right? Do you have is there an ideal like if I'm in tune with nature and my frequency is out into the space and I blow that horn, do you feel those frequencies travel on your presence?
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, but you see, that's magic. See, that's magic. But that's something that
I didn't even have to think. Yes, is the answer.
So that's really important for you. So how you move into that relationship to the environment you're in order to share those frequencies is really, that's the magical aspect for me about a musician playing any instrument, or in my particular field, the actual body is the instrument. Like the body for a performing artist, the communicating faculty for the performing artist is the body. There's not an instrument attached to it. We look at this thing as the instrument. And then like this natural extension of a musician, I'm imagining that this thing becomes an extension of like an arm or a leg or something.
It is totally. Well, think about a saxophone. The instrument only works with your breath. Right? That's the only way it works. I can hold it and go like this, and it doesn't play, but your body, your breath, your human breath is what makes the sound. So every breath that you every breath you take, every breath that you put into the every breath that you put into that instrument is part of you. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work without that human connection.
Yeah.
So you
to
got
the
that.
instrument.
So that's the breath.
Yeah, and it's really when you're holding it, it's really a part of you. You know, I played a show on Sunday, and I was kind of doing my moment with the solo, and I popped this highest of highest, screaming high notes,
Yes.
and the audience just went ballistic. They,
Yeah.
and even my guys in the band like turned at me, and the song ended, and the keyboard player says, "That was the most magic note I think I've ever heard you play before."
And so what? How do you attribute that? So there must have been a couple of things that go on, because otherwise you would just take that moment for granted and say, what qualitatively separated that moment from maybe a more typical moment? What do you think?
There was definitely a call and response between you and
Yeah,
everyone around you, right?
For sure. I mean that.
Yeah.
But that particular one, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what
You were
it did
in
at that
your-
particular moment, because I was kind of in my own thing with my eyes closed and everything. But apparently the audience was going nuts. And they
that's-
really felt that tone right
And
there.
that's those are the things that you're working towards. I would imagine that
Yeah.
it's those moments like that let you believe that you could even be better if you somehow found your way back into that every single time you stepped onto the stage. And so what elements went into allowing you optimally to find that moment?
Yeah, I just practicing, really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit about that, since you're a teacher.
Right.
And mastery, someone that doesn't want to play their scales over and over again, but how important that is. Like doing sit-ups at the gym.
It's
like you
discipline.
can't skip the just sit-ups if you want a 6-pack or 8-pack
Yeah.
or 12-pack, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's really on the basis on which the body is built. So if he's going into his practice, you can practice the classic, just going through the motions of practice. But at a certain point, you're not practicing the horn anymore as much as practicing how you are as you practice. Right? Isn't there an
Yes.
element of
It's true.
is the
You can
quality-
practice and just go through the motions, but it teaches you. I think it teaches you a dedication, of being committed. I mean, when I was in college, I practiced literally all between 6 and 8 hours every day. 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I locked it rained a lot there.
Yeah.
I locked
Thankfully.
myself in that practice room, and I'd practice sax for a couple hours. I'd practice piano.
Yeah.
I'd take a break. I'd come in and play a little flute and practice piano and some more sax every night. Every night.
So what's the common denominator between the quality of all of those instruments? I mean, some aspect of you staying the same in relation to each instrument, right?
Yes, definitely. It makes you an all-around musician.
So it's not the instrument as much as this instrument moving through that, right? So really your development has to do, at this stage, is not, the technical aspect of it, but how you are when you move. Is there any emotional preparation that you have? Like you said, you get a little, you get nervous, but is there something else that you've practiced that is not nervous, that manages to show up on that stage?
Knowing that for goodness sakes, I get to play my horn in front of people and make people
That's
feel
exciting.
good.
That's right, you do.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, how blessed is that? Right there. Yeah. I mean,
and isn't the
I like my
friction-
day job.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should all like
To
our
the day job.
Day job.
But Matt, wouldn't you say some of those nerves that are there are to shake some of the other stuff that maybe you were carrying with you before there? So you're not bringing, the family on the stage. You're not bringing that conversation that you had with your buddy onto the stage. So the nerves are the dissipator. and then you know that you can do it. Like you're not afraid that you
Right.
can't do it, right?
Right, because sometimes there will be some tense words, before a show, and
Yeah.
and then I'll get in the car and I'll drive to the gig and I'll be going, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." But then you get there and it kind of all just
Melts away.
flows. It
Yeah.
all kind of melts away, and then you're like, oh, why did I even have those tense words?
That's really what this show is about. It's about that transition. And it's about how we take that stress and then we transform it into something higher or something better. And I guess you're, because of your repetitive being on stage continually, you get to do that continually. I mean, that's I guess as well, when you come off a show and it's been really well, you're carrying a certain vibration with you home with you, and it might last a couple 3 days, right? If you're really in the zone.
I can never sleep after a good show, never. And a lot of times, if I do a show when it's late and you've got that energy, you got that adrenaline, and you come home and you just can't sleep,
Lights on, it's a party.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an adrenaline.
Yeah.
Well,
For sure.
how beautiful is that? I mean, if you can, like, let's say I work a regular job. What could you bestow upon somebody who has to go to a 9-to-5er,
Right.
and basically how they're seeing that 9 to 5, and how do they walk out of that job energized? You're practicing for 8 hours. You're on stage for a couple 3 hours. Sometimes you're coming out of there energized. Wouldn't it be great to be able to go to work and not come home tired?
Yeah.
And
Pumped up.
so there must be an aspect there that's opening up to allow this energy to move through you as really freely, in order to have that to be jazzed like that. I mean, what is it? What is that?
That is an excellent question. What would make me feel that good about doing that? I will say that, like, there's a ritual of, like, you set your horn down and you open the case, and
now we're getting
like
into
a lot of times I will I'll do a little little prayer to the horn or something before I take it out, and there's a ritual of the way you set it up and the way you put it on the stand, and I have a
You're in the
total
Tao.
ritual. Yeah, I do it the same way pretty much every time when I put my horn together.
Well, that's a huge thing. That's a
feel it.
huge thing for us
Yeah.
that's a huge thing for us to take with it. A lot of
Yeah.
times we rush off to work. We just rush off to work to get there on
Yeah.
time in order to get through it, though, right?
Right.
So I mean, if I'm working
Preparing the set and setting.
Yeah, if I-
like getting
Yeah.
your coffee, taking your time to sit and be before you jump into it. Don't look at your phone.
Yeah, but there's a repeated sense of gratitude and reconnection to the thing that he has to attach himself to.
Yep.
And in this case, for him, it's an instrument that he's working with. But for maybe it's a guy who works as a mechanic. He's got all his tools. He's got all his stuff that he's got to walk into. He's got to go in and he's got to navigate a space.
Well, those are special. All his tools.
Yeah, but
I like power
Right?
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean how?
I'm not allowed to use power tools because I need all my fingers. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
but if I'm stressed out, let's say my job is kind of wearing on me, how we go into it is a really, really important thing. And should we all be blessed enough to be able to, we're thinking at a certain point, this is a job for you.
Yes.
It is a
Well,
job.
and he
It's
can
not
prove-
like it's
Yeah,
not like it's
you
not
know,
like it's
I've-
not like it's like he's just showing up for the first time. But what he's able to do is reinvent himself, rediscover himself in the moment for the first time every time. And it's a job, but the point is he's able to elevate and
Well,
to
you're
create.
keeping the beginner's mind.
Yeah, there'll be times when I'm playing a disco song or something, and thinking, well, this isn't what I signed up for a little bit, But then you look out and people are dancing and have a good time, and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Well, you're
Sure.
lucky enough to have
Yeah.
that feedback.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and share, because how I think Matt also teaches students, which we talked a little bit
Yeah.
about. And so that's, you have to have a lot of patience,
Yeah.
because you're not hearing like Mozart every day with your students.
Right.
You're teaching them from the ground up.
Right.
If you can share a little bit how you get yourself in the mindset to really mentor them, inspire them, and motivate them.
I try and be a total motivator for my youngest students. And at that age, you can make it or break it for their whole
What age are you talking about? What age are you talking about?
My students are anywhere from 6 to 13. So they're the youngest if that's a word, music students that are in, they're just starting. Some of them, they're having their very first musical experiences ever in my class.
Wow,
So
that's really important.
I want to make it fun for them. I want to make sure they can laugh. Like, we have a part of the class is called jam time. And it's just exactly what it is. Jam time, And that's pretty much the point where I'm like, maybe you guys should put the headphones on. But it makes it fun for them, right? And at jam time, you can push every button on the keyboard, and I want to make it fun for them. I want them to be able to carry music on in their whole life, or as long as possible. And, it's not something for everybody all the time,
absolutely.
Everybody's got their own skill and their own thing that they bring to the table.
But music in itself is really sacred in itself, because eventually, when it gets right down to it, it's all aligned with the laws of nature. It's all aligned with frequency. It's all vibration itself.
Harmonic series.
Vibration and the music theory itself is all about the study of how everything is functioning.
Yeah.
And that's magical.
Absolutely. It's very special.
And I guess if you can align these young ones with something that resonates, the moment they see it resonates with somebody else, I guess you hooked them, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had some students go into some great places. I had one of my students found me on social media, and I had given him his very first music lessons at 6. Turns out he's now an opera singer, like a famous opera singer.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like a total rock star in the opera thing. And he found me online to let me know that those first like 2 or 3 years of me teaching him music made him realize he never forgot about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I found that one out, I mean, that melted me right there.
Yeah.
And we're still, now we're friends online,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
And
made an impression
he's
on
killing.
both of my children. You taught them how to play the keyboard,
Right.
and both have continued to take what you taught them and are inspired to even
Love
teach
that.
themselves. Keswick's
Yeah.
playing the guitar, keyboard.
So
all
Matt
those
Kalin,
things.
we got 1 minute left with you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to share?
What would I like
anything
to
else
share?
in the last moment?
Music is amazing, and it's something that brings you emotions of love and of joy and of sadness and introspectiveness, and it's something that just
It moves us all.
It moves us all. And, I'm super grateful to be able to convey that to people through performance and through teaching and through recordings and through just hanging out, jamming with some friends in the jungle.
I love it. I want to be in the jungle.
Yeah. So
That's Matt Kalin,
Yeah.
everybody. That's Matt Kalin. Where can we find you?
you can find me on Instagram at Matt_Kalin. You can also check out ManuelTheBand.com and Manuel the Band on Instagram.
And you guys
as well.
are playing this Saturday.
This Saturday at the Music Tastes Good Festival here in Long Beach.
The Music Tastes Good
1:30.
Festival here in Long Beach,
Yep.
people, at 1:30. Find this man. Roll it, Thomas.
Roll the end.
Thank you, guys.
back live now? Hey, we're back live. That was Matt Kalin. Suzanne.
Yes, Thomas.
How about that?
Yeah, pretty special.
What a trip.
Money and music.
Money and music.
Yeah.
Money and music. What'd you get out of tonight?
Well, I really think from Greg, just the aspect of really thinking about what our relationship to life is and how we want our currency, our money to be an extension of that. Not looking at it from like, I need this, this, and this, but really this is the quality of my life and how do I welcome in that which I need to sustain that and relate to the world that way.
I think it's cool that there's even a guy out there thinking about money that way. I didn't even know. He's making it sound like, he's like, there's tons of them out there thinking like he's thinking. I can't believe that that's the case. Because if so, I would go to church. I would go to the church of Greg.
Wendt. Yeah.
I would go to the church of Greg Wendt in order to get my light. But that guy shed some light on money and how to perceive it from a healthy place.
Absolutely.
And how about this Matt Kalin guy?
Well, Matt, I think reminding us to listen deeply and to harmonize and know when to put ourselves out there and when to bring ourselves back in and what did you call it, Matt? Blend in. I think it's a really important skill in life, especially right now with social media, the way we have it. Everyone's like, look at me, look at me. But when do we accentuate one another and welcome ourselves to support one another?
Yeah, I liked how he was talking about like the space that he would create for himself.
Yeah.
Like the time that he would take to sit and be inspired and then let that horn reflect that experience in his own private moment. Can you imagine like being up in the canyon and you're walking through the canyon and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell is that music? What is that music?
I love it.
So the sound.
I would get my flute out and try to run towards it.
The sound of music, for God's sake. Just run, like you have your own living soundtrack. So if you guys are out there in the woods and you hear this saxophone player, it's probably Matt out there taking a little adventure retreat with his little mini sax. I mean, that was really inspiring, and especially for any musicians that aspire just to take it on a day-to-day basis and be patient with your own growth and learn to appreciate yourself in it and keep rediscovering yourself. As an artist, as any sort of an artist,
as a human,
you're just every
keep
day
rediscovering ourselves.
Every day, you got this stage that's called life. If you take the time and find your own personal ritual to get yourself here, as if you're getting on stage, how much sweeter would life be?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping that beginner's mind. For every moment.
Extraordinary. Thanks for being here, Suzanne
Toro. Thank you, Thomas.
This is Thomas Ardavany with JoyScore Live. Tonight's been an extraordinary adventure with these folks. Come back to us next Wednesday. We've got a couple more great guests, and we're going to explore this JoyScore phenomena.
Like us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Sharing is caring, and come back for some more.
Yes, you got it. Run our end there, Thomas. Mute us.